Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vicki Poole. I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. This podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach, and it's all about embracing our mosaic life. And some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing, and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host. And I have a special guest with me that I will be introducing in just a moment. I can't wait to get her out here. But before I do, I want to ask a solid of you. I would love for you to leave a comment on this episode and remember to like, subscribe, and share because I've had some amazing guests and amazing stories. And the only way that I help them get it out even more is with your help. So remember, leave a comment, like, subscribe, and share. So now let's get started. Now, before I bring her out, and I keep feeling, oh, I do have a hair. I kept feeling like I had a hair in my eye. So before I bring her out, I will let you know that she and I are actually part of a group program for amazing entrepreneurs, right? And that's how I know Lala. And so I don't know her real well. I mean, I want to say we're sitting in the living room drinking a cup of tea as we're having our conversation today, but that's as close as we've been is being across from each other on the screen. But she has amazing talent. She's a singer, and I'm going to let her introduce herself a little bit for you so that you can understand the magnitude of what all she has going on, and then we'll jump into questions. So let me bring her out. Yay!
Hi,
There she is.
Vicky. I love that intro, and I love how this is just girlfriends talking.
That's right. Yes. So go ahead and just share a little bit about you, so the listeners, the viewers, will have a little bit of an idea about you before we start our conversation.
I'm a hodgepodge of change. I am one of these people who change a lot later in life. I knew what I wanted to do early in my life, and then I had my son at the age of 16. Then my life changed a whole lot after that. But I am a wife, I'm a mother, I am a world citizen. And I like to say that because I believe that people have lost their ability to hold on to their compassion. And that's one thing that I refuse to give up. I just won't do it. So I'm a little bit of everything, but I grew up in a small town in Kentucky. I've been married to my husband for over 30 years. We both are artists. He's a musician and I sing. We met in art school when we were 14 years old. I'm a mother to a wonderful son, and I got into real estate and enjoyed that. And then it expanded my horizons by going international with the real estate. But then I had a tragedy happen in 2023 where I lost my sisters, my two baby sisters, to a drunk driver. And at that time, oh my God, I can't even, I'm sure we're going to talk about this in the conversation, but at that time, my whole world stopped. And it was because my two sisters were so outgoing and they were always doing something. And I was like, what do I keep saying I'll do this later for? It's time to do it now because you really and truly don't know how much time you have here. So my world started changing. I have always wanted to sing around the world. My husband's always like, you could do it. Come on, let's do it. I'm like, yeah, but. And so we have started doing that. And we just came off of a mini tour and my heart couldn't be happier. I literally want to cry every time I say that.
Oh, that sounds amazing. That's amazing. So let's just kind of jump in. So you said you were 16 when you had your son? Right?
Yes. I was 16 years old and I was attending the Youth Performing Arts School in Louisville, Kentucky. It was the first time I ever felt like I belonged somewhere. Now, I grew up in a good household, but I didn't grow up with my birth mother. I grew up with my father's side of the family. My birth mother got into a little bit of trouble when I was a baby, and so she had to go and serve some time. And she gave me to my aunt who only had boys. She chose the aunt that only had boys, and she knew that this aunt wanted a girl. So she left me there, and then I ended up just living my life there in the small town with my father's side of the family. And I met her when I was 18.
How did that
Then
go?
after that,
How did that
I was.
how did that go when you met her for the first time?
You want to know a story, girl? It was
Girl,
funny.
I do. I do. I love a good story.
So, okay, I call mama is my mama who raised me.
Right.
That's my aunt. I always let people know that's my mama. I call Joyce Joyce, and I respect her as my mother. She's no longer with us. I
Yeah.
helped
I
her.
usually just say father, birth father,
Yeah,
mother, birth mother,
yeah,
to
yeah.
because
But
it's
there
not
is
the
a
same
difference.
thing. Yeah.
It's not the
Yeah.
same thing.
Mm-mm.
And so my mama was always like, you've got to know who your mother is. We don't know where she is. We didn't. She was a tumbleweed. She just was one of those people, just tumbleweeds everywhere. And she said, because she was so scared that I was going to like meet one of my brothers or sisters and fall in love with them or something. Because she had heard these stories about siblings falling in love. So she was like, we got to find out where your mama is.
Have some DNA testing for every person you go out with.
It was funny because at the age of 18, this was 2 years after I had my son, on my birthday, I had this feeling that she was going to call the house. Because in those days, you had a home phone. And in those days, you didn't change your phone number.
That's all right.
I know my phone number from when I was a little girl. That was my job, to answer the phone. So I had a feeling that she was going to call me. And sure enough, on my 18th birthday, she called and she didn't say anything. And I said, Joyce? And she said, yes. And I said, I thought you were going to call today. And that's how I said that. And she was like, well, yes, and that's how we ended up talking about that, because our birthdays were just 2 days apart. I'm February
Okay.
23rd, February 24th. Not that you would ever forget your child's birthday, but it was just a connection thing. So we're both Pisces, and we're both very sensitive, and we both have that intuition part of us. And so I just kind of knew that that was going to happen. So after that, my mama said, you got to go and meet her, even though I didn't know she was having anxiety. My aunties told me years later she was having anxiety about me going to meet Joyce. And so she paid for the ticket for my graduation for me to go and meet Joyce. And I met her in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I took my son with me. He was flying on there. First time I ever flown anywhere, son in my lap, and got to meet her, and then started to see why I look so different from everybody else in my family, why I didn't look like my other sisters. I look like her. And it's funny, when I'm slimmest, I look like my dad, but I still look like Joyce. And so she couldn't believe it. My siblings freaked out, like, oh my God, and I do mannerisms like her, even though I didn't grow up with her.
Yeah,
So that
isn't
was
that
an
interesting how that happens? Yeah.
crazy,
Yeah.
crazy,
Yeah.
crazy. And we would stop and look at each other like, well, did I just do the same thing that you did, So she, being a tumbleweed, she didn't really keep up a lot with me. She still had a tumbleweed life, an adventurous life. Anything Joyce wanted to do, she did. My birth mother is white. My father is black. And my birth mother left her family because her father was extremely racist. So she lived her life just the way she wanted to live. She wasn't going to put up with that, and she didn't.
Yeah.
So all of her children, all of us, and we stopped counting at 15.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
I was her first. But I only know 5.
Okay, so you don't know
And
the other siblings?
don't even know where they are in the world. She just loved hard and just had babies everywhere. She has a couple of set of twins,
She
but
lived the Woodstock life.
she really did.
Yeah.
Joyce really did. She was a tumbleweed. But at the age of 32, my brothers and sisters had never lost anyone close. They knew how to reach me. And so they said that she wasn't well, and if I could please come and help them because they didn't know what to do. And she was in hospice at the time. So I helped her to make the transition. I didn't get all the answers that I wanted, but that was okay.
Yeah.
I felt it was fitting to
Hmm.
be able to honor her in that way.
Yeah.
And it
That's
brought my brothers
beautiful.
and sisters closer to me as well. So we
Yeah.
had a different type of bond.
Beautiful. So have you done the DNA testing to see if there might be more people out there? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I did 23andMe when it first came out. This was before Ancestry and all those had done those. So I was one of the early adopters of 23andMe. And one of the reasons that I really wanted to do it is because I didn't know much about Joyce, and I wanted to know about the health part more than anything. She wasn't, she had diabetes. She had a couple other things, that I was like, I needed to know if they had that technology, if it's something that I needed to be careful for, because I tend to be very heavy, and so does she and the rest of her side of the family. Now, I've lost 115 pounds, and I've been able to keep it off for this is my 4th year of maintenance. So, I really wanted to make sure that, but I did the 23andMe, but Vicky, all the people who keep coming up are like, if I come in their life right now, they may be like, oh,
Well,
what came into this picture?
I'll have to share really quick. My son, I was married to his father, and we actually split up when I was pregnant. I was 8 months pregnant when we split up, and the last time he came to the hospital the night my son was born, and the nurses called him my mystery visitor because he came about 4 o'clock in the morning, because he was a musician. And so he came in after the club. Yeah. Not a good thing on his part, I will tell you. I mean, he was a good musician, not a good person. So anyway, he saw him a few times after he was born. The last time he saw him, he was 6 months old. And so, my son never really knew him or anything like that. And as my son got older, he wanted to do some DNA testing. And I said, well, you can do what you want to do, but I'm telling you, knowing your birth father, because I never said anything other than birth father, right?
Yes,
Even though I was married to the man,
yes.
I said, knowing your birth father, you might be opening a can of worms that you can't put back in the can. And so I would
Mhm.
think long and hard before I opened it. And so, as far as I know, he has never opened that can of worms. But and I, in some ways, I would like to know, but then I
Yeah,
don't either. So it's like we're just going to
it's
leave
a
that
catch
there.
22.
Yeah, yeah, we're just gonna, you know, whoever's out there that might be related in some way, I send you some blessings, right?
Right,
Because I don't
right.
know that I want to meet
Because
you.
they have the ability to contact you. Like, if you have a DNA match, they can say, "Hey, I'd like to know more about
Hmm.
you." Or and my one of my older sisters from my dad's side of the family, she did hers too, and we have actually found a lot of family on her side. But for Joyce's side of the family, I just don't think they're ready for me. I actually really did reach out to some of them, and they were like, "No,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're
Probably, and
lost, baby."
especially if they didn't really approve of her, they don't want to know about you. Yeah, I
Nah,
get
it's
it.
okay. It's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I ain't forcing myself on nobody. I ain't everybody's cup of tea.
Well, I'm glad you're here having a cup of tea with me today. Because here's my
Yes.
tea. What have you got? What are you drinking?
I love chai. So I made homemade chai with coconut
Oh,
milk.
see, I love chai too, but the decaf is not quite. I just don't like the decaf as much. And
Yes.
for me, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and if I drink decaffeinated chai at 1 o'clock, I'm not going to sleep tonight. So I have a decaf Earl Grey because it
Oh,
seems
one of
to
my
taste the same
favorites.
whether it's a
I
decaf
love
or a
it.
regular. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. I'm
So
a
I
tea
got
chick, so I love tea.
and I use the Ripple milk. It's a pea protein milk.
Oh, I've heard about that.
Yeah,
Do you like it?
I love it. I love it
Okay,
because the
gotta
coconut
try it.
milk is good, but it's more watery.
Yes,
Kind of like almond milk is watery,
yes,
and so
yes,
I like something that has a little bit more substance to it. Now, my daughter loves oat milk more than the pea milk,
yes.
but I used. I know we're getting way off on a tangent here,
I
but
like it though.
in my living room, right? So my daughter loves the oat milk, but I found that as I was drinking a lot of the oat milk, I was starting having some bloating happening. And I
Oh,
got to
yes.
thinking about it. I thought, well, hell, I'm eating oat all day long. Why am I surprised? So I
Right.
backed off of the oat milk and went back to the Ripple, and it all went away.
Okay, I'll have to try it because somebody else told me they liked Ripple too.
Yeah. And see, and I like the Ripple. You can get it with the flavors, and I get the plain with no sugar, and I love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's going on my list.
Yeah. Try it.
Cheers.
Try it. You'll have to let me know.
Definitely. I
All
love it.
right. So let's move forward. Well, first of all, let me ask you, when is I know you're a singer, so were you singing a lot when you were really little, or is that something you just kind of
Oh,
developed later? So was your
no.
mother a singer?
No, no, it's
No?
funny because my sisters that are older than me, they were, believe it or not, my sisters were just a couple of years younger than my birth mother.
Okay.
Yeah. Dad was much older, but Joyce was younger.
Yeah.
And so they lived with her a little bit, and they were with me. My older sisters were with me as a baby. Matter of fact, one of my sisters calls me her baby because she just kind of took me in. And they would say that she would sing a lot in the tub. So they actually told me, the things that she did. And I really don't. My father didn't sing. He loved country music, but he never really was a singer. I'm still not really sure exactly where that come from because my sisters also sang. So when I grew up, they would sing Mamas and the Papas, and they would say, okay, Laura, you sing this note. And I'm 3 and I'm singing the note with them. So the very first time, because church was a must in my home, everything was centered around our church, Baptist church, a little country church. And when you're little, you sing in the children's choir. So I was about 3.5 when they gave me that mic. And my solo was This Little Light of Mine. And honey, I didn't want to give the mic back. After that, I sang that song. And that's when I knew that's what brought me joy. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I
3 years
remember
old.
singing that when I was little
Yep.
too.
But you know what I love about that song, Vicki, is when you are a kid, you just, everybody's like, oh, it's such a cute little song for children. And oh, isn't that adorable? That's their first song. But as you get older and you continue to sing it, it takes on the age that you are.
Hmm.
At 20, it means something different.
Right.
At 54, to me, it means something so much different.
Yeah.
So that simple little song can take you through all of your journey to remember who you are and who you belong to.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And so
It
it means,
grows with you. Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah, I
mhm,
agree. I agree. So
mhm,
that is beautiful to think about. So everybody that doesn't know the song, look it up and definitely start singing it
mhm.
every day. It'll open up your
Everyone.
world, right?
It really will.
Well, I have this visual of you at 3 just running around on the stage there, singing Little Light of Mine, and it's
With the
really cute to
microphone
think about.
bigger than
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah.
Because at those time the mics was this big.
Oh
They were
yeah, yeah, that's right. You probably had
yeah.
a hard time holding it.
Yeah, but once I had it, you wasn't getting it back.
Well, it's funny because when I was little, we were raised Baptist as well, but I remember just doing a little bit of singing at church. It was more for the grown-ups.
Yes,
And but the thing that I remember wanting to be in front of something, it was like I
yes.
was I was always trying to get attention. And even like I remember when I was little, really little, my dad got a video camera, and there were not very many of them around at the time.
Right,
And so he had
right.
this video camera. So all the videos of us when we were little kids, I'm jumping in front of it, like I'm photo bombing everything.
I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah,
I
all
love
the
it.
time sticking out my tongue, making faces, anything I could to get attention. But the interesting thing that happened to me is that as I got older, I got more introverted at times. And then other
Ah,
times I would be very extroverted. And that is um, one of the things I think is a gift and a curse in some ways,
Yeah.
because the reason
Yeah.
I started my podcast was because I spent a lot of my life morphing into whatever I needed to be for the moment, whoever I
Yeah.
was around, you know, and what was acceptable, what wasn't acceptable. And so
Oh my God.
I
Yeah.
learned to develop however many characteristics I needed to fit in everywhere I was at. And
So
because, you
many.
know, it was amazing that I could do that. But on the other hand, that also meant that I was really very seldom was I speaking my truth or doing me, right?
Mhm.
And so I started my podcast so that I could say anything I wanted to say, act however I wanted to act. And I don't act crazy and I don't say anything
Right.
crazy, but it's like I have this permission in this
Yeah.
space to just be, right? And that's
Yes.
what the podcast does for me. And I love that I can have people like you on to share your stories and give you another voice. And I think from knowing the little bit I know about you, you don't have a problem vocalizing your voice. Um,
No.
no, no. So it's not that, but I love to be able to share people, you know, because people are so amazing, and I think we lose the fact that everybody, no matter what, has a story, has an
Yeah.
amazing story. Some people
Yes.
don't recognize that they have one. I've had
Yes.
some people that I would see them on Facebook or something, and I would say, "Oh, I'd love to have you as a guest on my podcast." And they'd say, "Well, what do you want me to talk about?" And I'd say,
Right.
"Well, I just want
Right.
to talk about your story." "Well, I don't really have one." I said, "Oh man, we need to talk,
You do have a
because what you
story.
put in that post, we need to talk." And you know,
Yes.
and so it's amazing the people that really they don't even recognize their own story, and
Yes.
you know, and so uh, it's just so important to me to be able
Yes.
to share this stuff out. You know.
And then you go through things and you think that you are the only one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you grow up thinking, well, nobody else would understand this. No one has ever been through this, or no one understands my perspective. I grew up thinking, I was pretty rare being a biracial child, and it's really not. You
No.
know, in the 70s, you just didn't really talk about it. You didn't quite fit in anywhere, and you just didn't talk about it. Um, and then also, I'm a sexual abuse survivor. And so I found that a few years ago when I was on Periscope with a group called the Perry Girls, I was one of their leaders, and we would do this thing called Pass the Cast. And so we'd have a topic, and you would talk for 10 minutes on your topic, and you pass it off to the next person, and they would go live. And one time it came on, and it was like, tell us something that we don't know about you. And I had something totally different planned. I had something
Isn't that
different.
the way it goes?
And then all of a sudden, something tapped me and said, guess what you're going to talk about today? And I was like, oh, no, I'm not. I'm not talking about this. I'm not doing this. And it's like, you have to tell your story. And it was about my sexual abuse. And I never will forget that I told the world at that time that I am a survivor, and that I had been carrying that around with me as a secret for very many years. The floodgates just opened,
Yeah. Yeah.
because there were people who were like, oh, you mean to tell me I'm not the only one carrying this? And so it from me listening to that voice, there was connections for other people to voice what they needed to voice.
Yeah.
So everybody's story is unique, but you're
Mm-hmm.
not always alone. You're
Right.
not
Right.
alone.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
And I will share that there have been many times that I would be talking to someone on my podcast. They would share something and that would lead me to a thought, and I would share that. And sometimes I would think, ooh, you know, hopefully nobody that I know is going to be watching, you know. And then
Right.
then I thought, well, wait a minute, why am I saying that, you know? So, but I have shared quite a few times on the podcast, you know, private things that I
Yes.
normally don't share out, and it's like,
Yes.
okay, wow. But it's getting that little nudge, like you said, that this is the time to go ahead and just no
Let it
holds
out.
barred, just let it out. And and it can feel very uncomfortable. Like, for instance,
Yes.
I had a lady on my podcast that is a extreme um sexual abuse survivor, to the trafficking,
Oh,
and it
wow.
was the family trafficking and stuff, and she ended up
Yes.
developing several personalities because of all the trauma. And
Wow.
so when she was on my podcast and we got off, she sent me a message and she said, "Oh my God," she said, "I shared things on there that I haven't even told my family members." She said, I'm not comfortable." And I said, "Well, I said, the podcast is already up and it is already running. You don't have to share it
Right.
until you're ready, but it's out
Right.
there, because you signed,
Right.
like you signed you just signed a thing saying,
Yes.
this is your property, you can share it." And, if I hadn't already put it out, I might have held on to it for just a little bit till she got comfortable. But because I
Right.
already had it out, she messaged me about a week later and she said, "I'm about to share." She said, "I know it's got to go." And,
Yep.
but a lot of times we get into this environment and we start sharing, and then we end up sharing a little bit more and a little bit more.
Yes.
And so it's because it needs to be out.
It needs to be out. Like I told you, that little touch on my thing, I was like fighting back. Oh no, you're not gonna tell me I'm getting ready to say this. But it wouldn't let me hold my peace. So I had to say it. And because of that, we ended up doing like a sexual abuse summit
Hmm.
online where we had guest speakers come in and share their story. We had a therapist that came in and spoke to people and gave them resources. So I can't help but to think that in that little world of Periscope, which is no longer around because it used to belong to Twitter, um, that we helped somebody.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's what it's about.
And if I could go back and look, the quite a lot of my female guests have had some kind of sexual trauma. I had a
Yes.
guest just recently that I was shocked when we started talking about it. And she was actually kidnapped um,
Wow.
and held captive. And it happened to be someone that she had met at a bar, and
Wow.
he
You
kidnapped
never
her.
know.
Yeah, and she said that she didn't say anything when she got away. She didn't tell anybody because she thought they're just gonna say it's all my fault. They're gonna,
Yep.
how they do. And so it was like, oh my gosh, I was really shocked. And I think the last few women that I've had on had some sexual trauma in theirs. So with that said, would you want to share just a little bit about what happened for you?
Yeah, for me, it was a family member.
Mhm.
And I still say baby, 3, 4 years old. And it was a close family member. And I remember going home that evening because I had spent the day with this family member. And, at nighttime with us little country girls out there sweating and running around in the dirt, you got that bath every night. And my mama was like, "What's going on here?" Because she had noticed that there was some trauma in that area. And I
Mm.
told her. And I don't know, honestly, Vicky, I really don't know if they ever talked about it or discussed it because in those times, you didn't talk about those things.
Mm-mm.
You didn't talk about those. You
Especially if
didn't
it was
share
a
those
family
stories.
member, it was like, "Mm, yeah."
No. And so I don't really know if it was talked about. Now, here's the thing, I couldn't remember who it was. I didn't remember who it was until I was 30 years old and something happened and it clicked. And when it did click, that family member was still living. And I confronted him.
Mhm.
And all he could say was, I'm sorry. And that was it. But it had come to my attention that I wasn't the only one. And he was dating women with children. And
Mhm.
so I was like, not in my watch. I don't care who you are. So I called his girlfriends and I said, "You have children. You're not safe." And it was so very interesting how they reacted to me because it was, "I don't believe you. I don't
Yeah.
believe you." None of them believed me. And then years later, it came out. Now, this family member is no longer here. But when I spoke out and talked about it, my family wasn't, they weren't receptive. They still weren't receptive to it. And well, what's going on with the lights here? But okay. Um, maybe he's
God
mad. I
saying,
don't know.
talk,
We're
girl,
gonna talk
talk,
about it.
girl.
I don't care if you want to talk about it, we're gonna talk about it. So so at the time I still felt like the black sheep because I was speaking out about it and
Hmm.
wouldn't do it. Before he passed, and he did not have an easy passing. Okay, he did not have an easy passing. I was able to say to him over the phone, um, I have to forgive you. I'm working on the forgiveness, but you can go now. And that's how I said it. And from what I understand, it had to been something that he was carrying with that, because not too long after that, he did take his last breath. And so I just refuse to be quiet about it. So if my family gets uncomfortable about it, to hell, I don't care. I mean, I really don't. I'm still going to talk about it. You need to protect other people. You need to show people that you do care. This is not a secret. I know how it makes me feel when I think back, and I think all of my family was so quiet about it. The other people would have not been harmed if they would have opened their mouth. It's as simple as that. And I just choose to break the cycle.
Yeah, good for you. Good for
Yeah.
you. Yeah. And, unfortunately, a lot of times when someone comes forward, then, people do start, well, why didn't they say something before now? Why didn't this? Why didn't that? Did they just make it up? And there's all these things. And it's not to say that everybody is truthful. I'm sure
Nope.
there are people that bring things up that they're just out for an agenda,
Yep.
but I think it takes discernment when someone comes forward and being able to say, yes, I can feel the truth in them,
Right. Right.
so it's amazing. And so the thing that I really want everybody that's watching or listening to know, that if something has happened to you in your past, or if you suspect something, you know it's okay to speak out. It's okay
Yes.
to take that chance, because you could be saving someone else. And because
Yes.
there's lots of times it's they're predatory, and they know, just like you're the person that you knew was dating people with young children. They
Yes.
usually, as a predator, they know. And I'll have to share this, and this is totally different, but do you remember the show Dexter?
Yes, girl, it was one
Okay.
of my favorites.
Really? Oh,
One of my favorite shows.
I couldn't watch it after a certain point because I was a single parent. And he was doing all that stuff. And then when he started dating the woman that had the child, that freaked
Yes,
me out. And it was like, oh
yes,
no, I can't have this in my brain, because I don't care
right.
if he's doing good. The fact that somebody could do this, I don't want that kind of
Yes,
person around me. And it was like
different
I
level,
couldn't watch it anymore, because I
different
had to
level.
get that out of my head. And so I'm
Yes,
very careful. I can't watch anything that's like that, because it's like horror movies and things like that. They get in my brain. I can't get them out.
and
And
me, I love them. I thrive for them.
see, my daughter loves those things too, but me, it's like, oh, hell no. I have to be very protective of this space in my head,
You know, one of
and
my
I
favorite
can't
things
do
is
it.
the true crime, and the reason
Now,
I love true
now
crime is
one of my
because
sisters is that way too.
yeah, because at the end, 9 times out of 10, of course, the unsolved mysteries, you don't have an ending. But with most of the true crime, they catch them and they get them. And that's
Yeah.
what to me is like, yeah, we got them. You know, like
Yeah.
that's something about that.
Yeah. See, for me, I don't want to um, be involved in seeing how horrible people can be.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have to have this break and step away from that kind of thing. And since I know that about me, because it disturbs me tremendously,
Yes. Yes.
and it
Yes.
even makes me
Yes.
get teared up now just thinking about it, just
Yes.
knowing that people can be horrible in that way. And
Hmm.
so I tend to want to focus. Now, whether that means I've got on rose colored glasses or whatever the hell that
No,
means, I
you
tend to
know, you
want
can
to,
protect your energy, protect
yes.
your aura, protect your
So
energy.
I have to. look at the good side of life and the good things that are happening and read about those things, listen to
Yes.
podcasts, so those are the kind of things I have to do for me. And
Mm-hmm.
so the thing is I think it's recognizing how you are energetically and how your mind works,
Oh, yes.
and deciding what's good for you,
But even
because
that's the journey. You
yeah.
have to learn that about yourself. I
Mhm.
have had to, and everybody else does too, but in the recent years more than anything, I have learned to break the thoughts that were pushed upon me. Meaning
Yes.
I was told that, and this, I don't know where this got twisted in my brain. I guess maybe just when you're 3 years old and you think your mama just dropped you off to somebody else, and you just, there's abandonment issues there. And it
Mhm.
took me years to understand that that was an abandonment issue. Well, I felt I needed to be the good little girl. You don't do
So you
what
didn't get
mama.
abandoned again.
Honey, let me tell you something. I got one whooping in my life. That's it. That's
Yeah.
all it took. And my mama was not a whooper, but I had done something that she needed to spank these little legs. My feelings was hurt. You hear me? I was like, no, not doing that again. So the rest of my life, I went through, you must be the good girl. You must do what people say. You must, they know better than you.
Mhm.
And it took me years, Vicky, to break that cycle. Because when I had back to the having my son at 16, um, my mother told me, "Oh, honey, you can't sing anymore. Your dreams of singing are just you. Got to be a mama. You got to go to school and you got to get this degree." So I went and got this word processing degree. That's what they called it at the time. Um, you know, uh, really. I mean, I paid all that money for this word processing degree, only for Microsoft to take over the year that I graduated. So
Well,
I
there's a
did
lot of
that.
people go to
And
college for a long, long time, and then their whatever it is obsolete once they get their
obsolete.
degree. Yeah, yeah.
So I went straight into the workforce, and I just left the singing to church and was miserable. Miserable my whole life trying to figure out why am I not happy? What's going on with my life? And it took me years and a beautiful, lovely husband who has always told me from day one and was my only friend to come to see me at the hospital when I had my baby. We weren't dating at the time. We didn't officially start dating until I was 19. But the only friend who came to see me and support me through the whole pregnancy thing and always said, "Well, who told you you can't sing? Who told you that?" And always the one pushing me to do so. So it comes full circle to the final growth of now being able to do that and breaking the cycle of somebody telling me that I can't. But it
Mhm.
takes a lot to break that cycle of I can't.
Right. Well, there's a
Mhm.
book that I love, and Vishen Liakani, however the heck you say his name, the founder of Mind Valley. Um, it's he calls them rules, bullshit rules is what he
Uh-huh.
calls them in his book. And
Yep.
so it is figuring out what is it that you believe that is actually your belief, and what is your belief that somebody has indoctrinated into you and you've
Mhm.
just accepted it as truth. And there's
Mhm.
so much that we are fed as kids from our teachers, from our parents, from our friends,
Yep.
from all those people, and it's amazing the things that we believe. So I like to say that we are wearing glasses that you
Mhm.
have Vaseline on because
Yes.
you've been given so much stuff that's not really yours, and that's how you see the
That's
world.
right.
And so you
But
have to
they
kind
do
of,
their best. I
yeah.
think honestly they do the best that they can
Yeah,
and they
because
don't
their
know.
glasses are filtered by the ones that came before them. So
Oh,
it's
yes.
not anybody's fault. It's just getting to a place now where you recognize, well, let me just take these glasses off and clean them a little bit, and let me see how the world
Right.
looks then. And,
Right.
letting go of some of those old
Right.
beliefs and start seeing the world anew. I mean, it's a powerful, powerful thing.
It is. When Joyce
Yeah,
dropped me off at 3, my mama was in her 40s.
yeah.
So imagine a Black woman in her 40s who had gone through civil rights, who had gone through the rules of whites on this side, blacks on this side,
Mm-hmm.
to you better be good and stay in the lane. This is how it goes. This is what you're going to do. This is, don't you look to the left and to the right. You keep, to me being like, but I want to look to the left and the right. I want to
Yeah.
see what's going on over here. So for her, that was frightening. But I
Yeah.
actually, when I look back on life, I see that she later on, as I got older, was ready to actually see the world, but her heart just couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
So it was like she literally had a heart attack because
Mm.
it was, but she started to see the visions and I was loving it. You know, like at 21, she was like, hmm, maybe we should go do this. Like, you know, like let's go travel, let's go. And it would be us, just us two and my son. And even though she was still married, you know, her husband just didn't have those adventures. He was a
Right.
homebody. She wanted those adventures.
So it's great that you got to.
Yeah, I got to do some really cool things with her before she said that was just enough. But
Yeah.
mama knew. Mama knew. Mama was in the hospital and I was going to pick her up that Monday. And I went to go see her on a Saturday because I was up there all the time at the hospital. And she was like, "You don't come up here tomorrow. It's Sunday. I know you have to sing in the choir. You don't come up here tomorrow. Come and see me Monday." You know, like, and I was like, "But my," I said, "I can come after church." Y'all have two church services that day, one in the morning, one in the evening. Don't come up here. And that Monday, she knew it. She knew we were having a guest church this Sunday. And by Monday, she was like, I'm gone. You'll be all right.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you were able to be there for her transition too then?
I missed Mama's transmission.
Oh,
I think that she knew she had to go before I came because that was the hardest loss for me. She
yeah.
was my world. She was my protector. She was my everything. And I was 21 years old. I had just turned 21 when Mama left. And I think that by that time, she was like, she's going to be okay. She had seen I was good with my honey bunny. I think she actually secretly told all of her sisters, I'm not going to tell her that I really like him because she might dump him. Because, you know, at that age, at that age, they think, you're going to do the opposite of what your parents are. She's like, I'm not going to tell her. I'm not going to tell her.
Yeah.
So I think she saw that I was in good hands. And also, she never got to really officially meet my mother-in-law. She knew of her, and I think she met her once or twice. But at that time, my mother-in-law immediately was like, come on, baby. Come on. I'm going to need you to come down here and let me love on you a little while because this is heavy. And she had lost her mother at an early age. So I was able to tap into my sphere at the time. And my mother-in-law, I don't like to call her my mother-in-law. She is my mother to me. I love her very, very much. And
Mhm.
she's very close to me. And she allowed me to help get through that transition of
Nice.
no longer having my mother.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. Beautiful. So, when did you and your husband start um, touring with your singing?
Well, we've always been in music together. We've always had like he always has a
So,
recording
does
studio.
what does you say he does? He does? Does he play?
Oh, he's a musician.
Yeah, but
He plays the piano, he plays the guitar. He's also an audio professional. So we
oh,
have recording studios.
okay.
Everywhere we've gone, we've done recording studios. And he's always been immersed in music. He knew from his life purpose early on that's the only thing he's ever done.
Wow.
And so that's the only thing he's ever done. So at 14, that's why we met at the art school. But once we got married and he was still doing that and I was still doing this corporate thing, thinking that's what I was supposed to be doing, and he's
Yep,
like,
yep.
when are you going to come and sing? I'll wait for you when you come to sing. So later on, and like just recently, we've been traveling and doing the singing thing together. And this has opened up the world for me. Um, and I got to back up a little bit because I think I fought it until this life event happened. I lost my two sisters in 2023, January, to a drunk driver. And at that time, I it was the worst tragedy and the worst grief I've ever experienced. And I still go through the grief. Grief is a bitch. She will come up
Oh,
on
yeah.
you when you don't expect it and take you down. And so I took pretty much a whole year of me just trying to process things because the girl who killed them is still out walking around like nothing has ever happened.
She
And
didn't
she's not
get
been punished.
prosecuted at all?
She's prosecuted, but ain't nothing coming up. It's in Mississippi. She's able to skate by. She knows people, and
Oh,
so in the judicial system, so she's walking around free. And I'm having a hard time with this. So in the year that after the first year, I was really just like not doing anything. Like I just couldn't put my heart in anything. Only trying to figure out how I can make this right in some kind of way. But along the way, I was like, what are you doing? Because my sister Valerie was so
I
adventurous.
have a sister, Valerie, too.
You do? Oh my God,
Younger
that's
sister.
so,
Yeah.
yes.
I have a Judy
And
and a
so was
Valerie.
Azure. And Azure was also adventurous. But Valerie was always the one who would say, I was losing the weight at the time and I was trying to learn to jog. And she was an avid runner. And she like, Lorianne, because that's because she calls me Lorianne. Lorianne, I think we should do a run together. And I said, okay, sissy, but I can't run like you. I said, I'm a slow runner. She said, but bitch, you're running. She's this kind of person. So
Yeah.
she was always like, get out there, start singing. And so I would hear in her voice, like, it's time to stop listening to everybody else. And so I slowly started incorporating singing more. I sing for my church. I still sing for my church. I will always sing for my church. But getting out there and learning new things with my voice. So in this last year, my husband and I have really been working on music and touring with his album. So we just got back off of a mini tour. So it was the first one that to me was the freeing one. I have sang with him before in Italy and other places, but this one was different. This was like, now you've settled into what you're supposed to be doing.
Yep.
So we did
This is me
Portugal.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't even have the words for that. You
Yeah.
understand? Like there's like no words. You just know that's where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so we sang in Portugal, we sang in Spain, and we sang in Morocco. And we just got off the road. I'm hoarse. I lost my voice down in Africa because I didn't realize it was so much desert. I felt like I was swallowing sandpaper. So I'm just getting it back. So, but it was one of the most enlightening, you know what? We all come here. We all come here with a life purpose. Sometimes we forget that. My mother used to say that children could see things because their life veil wasn't pulled from their eyes. And there's so many stories, I think, that children still speak to God or speak and see things because they don't know any better.
Yeah.
The life
Nobody's told them
hasn't,
that. That's not
yeah,
true. Yeah.
right. And it's at that time when people say, oh, you're crazy, that you start guessing yourself. I feel like my veil has finally been lifted. And
Oh.
so now you just can't shut me up. Like if I hear somebody, I've always sang around the house, but if there's something on the radio and I go, "Ooh, she did something I want to learn to do." Now I will literally gonna go, break it down, and work on it. I may not be perfect at it, and I'm learning my language to myself now, my love language to myself now. Whereas I used to say, "Oh, I can't do that. She's so good. I can't do that." I can say, I'm not there yet.
Yeah. Great distinction. Yeah.
Yeah. So we just got back off of our first little mini tour, and we plan on having another one this summer. And my husband has some ideas in mind, but I'll let him tell me when it's okay to say things. We
Head
balance each
out of the
other.
bag.
Yeah, let's get out of the bag. But we will definitely be doing another tour. And this time I'm just so excited because this time, Vicki, I literally was standing there thinking, oh my God, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Like it was like this thing that, if you see in someone smiling, people don't understand. There is a language when you are performing for someone. It is a language. There's something about music that is unspoken. I said Portugal, Spain, and Morocco. Nobody was really speaking English, but
Mm-hmm.
they understood the language of music. So when you
Right.
see somebody going, ah, you're
Yeah.
starting to get fed too. Your soul gets fed, their soul gets fed at the same time. And there's a language spoken that you may not even be speaking the same language, but you know what it is.
Yeah.
And
And,
that's what I experienced.
music has the ability to take us back to times, that because like I can hear some songs from when I was in high school and college and in my 20s and stuff. And as soon as that song comes on, I'm right back in
Right
that moment,
there.
And I
Right
think
there.
music is smells can do it pretty well too.
Yes.
But music,
Yes.
oh my gosh, it is like it speaks to
Powerful.
your soul, very powerful.
Powerful.
And I one of the things I tell people a lot of times is you anchor your thoughts and stuff to certain things, whether it's just doing something with your hands or whether it's something in your pocket, but you can do it with music too, to where every
Yes,
time you hear this song, it takes you back. And so you can create some of that stuff with
you
just your
can.
imagination. It's amazing, amazing the stuff that music opens up in your brain.
And that reminds me of a story because, like I said, I've always done things with music, and it is at a point in my life I was going to sing at nursing homes, and I did not do the same stuff that everybody sang to them. This one little lady told me, she said, "You're not gonna sing some more old church songs out there. Everybody come here singing church songs look like we dying, And I was like, "No, ma'am, I'm not singing that." So I made it a point to learn 30s, 40s, 50s tunes, Ella Fitzgerald, Duke Ellington, all those songs. And I would go in and sing those songs. I kid you not, Vicki, a lot of the times they would push people in wheelchairs. They would just, their heads be down. They didn't even know where they were. But the minute I started singing something from their era, they would wake up, start
Yeah.
tapping their hands, their feet, and then afterwards, I wouldn't leave. I would wait for them to take everybody back to their room. I would actually go out and speak to them. How you doing today? Did you enjoy the music? Girl, the stories I got from them people. Girl, I met my husband in San Francisco. We had a good time in San Francisco. We used to go to the speakeasies. They would just open up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen like some specials about how with Alzheimer's patients, they can
Yes,
take them or they can bring them back out of their shell just by having
yes,
music played. And so that just sounds amazing, amazing.
yes,
And it would be lovely knowing that if those places could pipe some of that music in to the
yes.
to the area all the time so that,
Like
you
that
know,
woman said, stop
yeah,
singing these old hymns to me.
yeah,
I'm like I'm dying. I still
that's
got
right.
it.
And I may not remember why I'm here, but damn it, I'm
That's
here.
right. I'm here. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're getting really close to time, and this has been lovely. I've had such a good
Okay.
time getting to know you. And so I would love to just keep going, but I've got this other thing I have to get to. And so
I
we'll
know.
have to do this again and explore
Yes,
further, because this is fascinating stuff. I love it. I love
it
it.
is. I'm so grateful that you asked me to come and speak. Thank you.
Well, I'm so glad you accepted. So, do you have any one last thing that you would like to tell people about you before we go, or if they want to connect with you in some way? And just so everybody will know that I will have in the description, I will have any like emails or anything that you have for people to reach out, or I don't know. I don't even know if you have programs or what the hell you have. I don't know. So, we didn't get there, but anything you got. Anything you got, I'll have it in the description. So, are there any last words that you would like to share?
I do. And this actually came to me today. And I think it came to me for a reason for to share is I did a post today on my Instagram that said, um, dreaming your dreams can keep you trapped. As long as you're content with dreaming them, you're not doing them.
Mm-hmm.
So don't get trapped in your dream. Get out there and make the plans to do it. Even one small step outside of that gets you closer to the achievement. So be the light. Why not go out on a limb? Isn't that where the fruit is? It is.
Definitely. Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. And that just really goes so well with the quote I always leave everybody with. The best way to predict the future is create it. What are you creating? And so just remember, just like Lala said, don't let your dreams stay dreams. Get them out. And so the only way you can predict how that's happened is create it. Ah, beautiful. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for listening, watching. And remember to like, subscribe, and share. And please put a comment on this episode because it really helps us to get the algorithm to pick it up and spread the message a little bit more. So thank you again, everybody. Mwah.